Hey there. In the Hermetic memory tradition, there's a strong preference for memory palaces inspired by astrological symbols, objects, or constellations. So whether it's the 7 planets, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 28 mansions of the moon, or the 36 decans, these cosmological marking places were used to store memories, but also to allow the mind to tune into and to gain mastery of the hidden forces which they represented. Famous mnemonic magus Giordano Bruno used the images of the 36 decans as his memory palace, drawing from the Picatrix in order to gain this inspiration. But does this practice date back earlier than the genius of the Nolan? The decans themselves, of course, can be found in ancient Egyptian temples and writings, so they certainly are ancient. But what of tuning into them through memory in order to gain the divine blessings from their influences, and indeed the control of the spirits which are subject to those influences? If we look in the Hermetic extracts or fragments which were collected by Johannes Stobaeus in the 5th century, we can actually find a very interesting section. It's just called Of the Decans and the Stars. As with most Hermetic texts, it takes the form of a conversation between a teacher and student. Hermes being the teacher, Tat being the student. Tat starts as follows. In your former general discourses, you promised to explain more about the 36 decans. I therefore ask you to tell me about them and to explain their working. I'm quite willing, Tat, and of all my teachings this will be of supreme importance, and will stand amongst them. So I bid you mark it well in your mind. I have told you before about the zodiacal circle, which is also called the animal bearing circle, and about the 5 planet stars and the sun and the moon, and the several circles of these 7 sacred bodies. You have thrice greatest one. I desire you then, in your memory, to focus on the 36 decans also, to bear in mind everything that I've told you, that so my teaching about the decans will be easily understood by you. I hold in my memory all that you have told me previously, Father. I told you, my son, that there is a body which encloses all things. You must conceive the shape of that body as circular, for that is the shape of the universe. I conceive its shape as circular, even as you've told me before, Father. And you must understand that below the circle of this body are placed the 36 decans. Between the circle of the universe and that of the zodiac, separating the one circle from another, they bear up, as it were, the circle of the universe, and look down at the circle of the zodiac. They hold back the all-enclosing body, for that body would move with too much speed if it were left on its own. But they urge on the 7 other circles, because these circles move with a slower movement than the circle of the universe. And the subject of the decans is the constellation called the Bear, which is centrally situated with regard to the zodiac. The Bear is composed of 7 stars and has overhead another bear to match it. The function of the bear resembles that of the axle of a wheel. It never sets nor rises, but abides in just one place, revolving around a fixed point and making the zodiacal circle revolve, transmitting the world from night to day and from day to night. Let us understand then that both and at this point the text becomes broken, of the 7 planets and all, again it's broken in this point, or rather that the decans stand around all things in the cosmos as guardians, holding all things together and watching over the good order of things. Even so, I conceive them and imagine them clearly in my mind, Father, exactly according to your words. And further, my son, you will understand that the decans are exempt from the things that befall the other stars. They are not checked in their course and brought to a standstill, nor hindered or made to move backwards as the planets are, nor yet are they as the other stars. They are free and exalted above all things, as careful guardians and overseers of the universe. They go round it in the space of a night and day. Tell me, O Father, do these decans act on us men also? Yes, my son, they act on us most powerfully. If they act on a heavenly body, how could it be that they don't act on us also? The effects are visible on individual men and on communities. The force which works in all events that befall men collectively comes from the decans. For instance, the overthrow of kingdoms, the revolt of cities, famines, pestilences, overflowings of the sea, earthquakes, none of these things, my son, take place without the working of the decans. For if the decans rule over the 7 planets, and we are subject to the planets, do you not see that the force set in action by these decans reaches us also, whether it is worked by the decans themselves or by the means of the planets? And besides this, my son, you must know that there is yet another sort of work which the decans do. They sow upon earth the seed of certain forces, some very beneficial and others not so, which we call daemons. And what is the bodily form of these beings, Father? They do not possess bodies made of normal matter, but some special kind of matter. Nor are they moved by soul as we are, for there is no such thing as a race of daemons distinct from other beings, but they are forces put in action by these 36 gods. The extract continues to talk in depth about other cosmological bodies, constellations, comets, and their influences. Throughout the text, Tat reassures Hermes that he is remembering what's being said, that he's fixing in his mind what's said and contemplating most deeply. The text actually becomes harder to understand and more fragmented. But if you do follow it to the end, we find something very interesting. Tat asks more questions about the contemplation of these planetary constellations and positions. And he's told that through contemplation on these particular areas, great blessings could be received. He goes on to say that many people are unable to fully contemplate these higher forces because they're too attached to the material world. Hermes makes absolutely clear that through contemplation of these astrological planets and constellations, one can gain a form of higher knowledge. And indeed, it's clear in the context of the other Hermetic writings of the time that there is an idea that the practitioner can even draw these divine energies down into themselves for their own evolution, mastery, and expression. Finally, the extract ends with a clear understanding that going beyond these figures in the sky allows one to understand divinity, and that this is a very important preparation during life, because once you leave your mortal body, you will have to transverse through these places yourself. Having read this extract, we can now be assured that Giordano Bruno was most certainly not innovating a new way of practicing Hermetic memory, but was in fact bringing something back, recalling something from the original pure tradition, as it may well have in turn reflected an ancient Egyptian wisdom, whereby we see the decans pictured as 36 Egyptian gods, each bestowing a divine power and virtue.